Hey, what's up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing all your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. Kind of want to apologize for not putting up a video for the last week or so, 2 weeks actually, since my last video. I've been busy having a life, which is something new to me, so I didn't really have a lot of time to throw anything together. But here I am now, 2 weeks after my last video of top 5 shooting guards in the league, giving you now my top 5 small forwards in the league. But before we get to that, there is some news in the world of the Nets. Since my last video, it kind of happened basically like the day after I posted my last video. The Nets signed Alan Anderson, who is a 6'6 shooting guard, small forward player. Currently played for the Pistons last year. Averaged 10.7 points per game in 23 minutes. So showed some good efficiency when it came to scoring. Honestly, I've never seen Alan Anderson play. I've heard of his name. I kind of thought he was a bench player, like a 12th man type player, which is what he's basically going to be on the Nets, if not a reserve. So to me, it's really not that important. But it is an acquisition that the Nets have done, so I am going to talk about it just in the sense that it basically solidifies the roster now. The roster is complete. And the Nets now have a 15-man roster with the addition of Alan Anderson, who I think is just a good emergency player if someone gets hurt who can come in and play some minutes. So that's that on that. So let's just now actually address what exactly this video is. Once again, this is my top 5 small forwards. This should be relatively quick. I don't think there's much debate on the top small forwards in the game. This is a league that is all of a sudden become very dominant in their small forwards. It used to be very guard heavy. Now it's become a lot of small forward heavy. That and point guards as well have kind of been like the main two power positions. So let's go right in with my honorable mention. My honorable mention is Brooklyn's new small forward and Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce, to me, is always going to be in the conversation as a top small forward in the league. With his 18.6 points per game, a little over 6 rebounds, was a very efficient player, shot well from 3. I kind of wonder what kind of production he's going to have this coming season with his minutes being cut down. But overall, he's just a really solid small forward. I don't think anyone's going to disagree that he at least deserves to be in the conversation as a top one. But he's simply just an honorable mention with me. I never really liked Paul Pierce. I've never been crazy about him. I kind of always felt he was extremely overrated, though he has shown that he is a winner and he's a great player. And obviously, I'm happy he's on the Nets now, but maybe just because I never really thought he was as great as people said he is, might be the only reason why I have him as an honorable mention. So he's an honorable mention. So my number 5 ranked small forward will be Rudy Gay of the Toronto Raptors. Now, Rudy Gay also might be one of the most overrated players in the league. That's another countdown I'm going to do eventually, sometime before the season starts, probably as my most overrated players. Rudy Gay, though, despite being extremely overrated, I feel, with his 18.2 points per game, his 6.1 rebounds, and his 1.5 steals per game, is still a number 5, because he really still is a top 5 small forward. He might be overrated, but he is such an athletic player, such a good defender. He's a solid scoring option. He's really not a number 1 scoring option on the team. He should be a number 2 scoring option. I think a good complement would be a guy with a good low post game that could work out with him. But he's number 5 because he really is, I think, the 5th best small forward in the league. He's a really good small forward. He's not a superstar. She is a star, though, but he's not a superstar. But he is a good player who can give you 20 points a game. He can give you 7 rebounds a game. He can give you some clutch shots down the stretch, and he's a very good defender. So he's number 5. Number 4 will be Paul George of the Indiana Pacers. Now, Paul George really splashed onto the scene last year. A lot of people saying it's because Danny Granger got hurt, and they're absolutely correct. If Danny Granger did not get hurt, or did not miss a lot of games this year. Paul George, I don't think would have had as good of a productive season. Would not have been an All-Star. Would have still had some good numbers, but you know, he really splashed on the scene because of the playing time and really took the role of the go-to guy for the Pacers. 17.4 points per game, 7.6 4.1 assists, 7.6 rebounds. Only shot 41%, but he really had to take a lot more shots than he normally would have because without Danny Granger, they didn't have that number one scoring threat. But just like Gay, he's such a great defender. And, statistically he's worse than Rudy Gay, but I just feel like overall he is a better overall player than Rudy Gay. So, you can really argue between Pierce being an honorable mention, Paul George, and Rudy Gay. You could really switch any of these guys in, and argue anything, But I have Paul George because I really like him. He's becoming one of my favorite players who are currently playing. He is a lot like Tracy McGrady when Tracy McGrady was healthy, and that's a fantastic sign. If he can become more consistent offensively, you're looking at the next superstar in the league. But right now he's number 4 because he's a little inconsistent, but he's still a fantastic defender and just an all-around great small forward. So now it brings me to number 3. Now, I'm pretty sure we all know who 3 through 1 is. Number 3 is obviously Carmelo Anthony. With his 28 points per game, his 6.9 assists, player efficiency rating 24.23, shot 45% from the floor. Carmelo is arguably, between him and Durant, the two best offensive players in the game. And I think there's a lot of unfair criticism on Carmelo. And this is coming from, obviously, a Nets fan. Of, he's just a scorer, doesn't play defense, blah, blah, this. I understand why they say it, because Carmelo has never even made it to the finals. He's made it to the Western Conference Finals, but not the NBA Finals. And he is a little bit of a one-dimensional player, but I feel like if Melo was on the right team, in the right system, with the right other players who could play well with him, Melo would win a championship soon. And, but he's clearly number 3 because obviously Durant and obviously LeBron, I don't even need to even go into details here. We all know Kevin Durant's going to be number 2 and LeBron is going to be number 1. But we all know those guys are better than Carmelo. Carmelo, though, is probably one of the best scorers in the league, arguably. And, I liked him until he went to the Knicks. Since he's gone to the Knicks, I don't hate him, but I don't really like him anymore. I used to root for him. Now I just don't care. But I'm going to be honest. When Carmelo is on, there's not one player, I think, who can guard him. And that's, to me, the definition of a superstar. So that's why he's number 3. Because he can be locked in and be so good. And he really is one of the best scorers in the league. So obviously number 2 now is Kevin Durant. And Kevin Durant would be number 1 if it was for LeBron James, who obviously would be number 1. But Kevin Durant averaged 28.1 points per game, 7.9 assists, and shot 51% from the field with a 41.6% three-shooting percentage, which is ridiculous. And if you're going to have one player who can score better than Carmelo and can do it on a regular basis, it's Kevin Durant. And, Durant is just one of those players that you just have to acknowledge is just that good and that great, and when it comes straight down to it, if it wasn't for LeBron James, Durant would be the best player, and I think Durant is hands down the second best player in basketball, and, it's going to be interesting to see if he could ever try to take an MVP from LeBron James. I think he will eventually win an MVP award, Durant. But I don't think it's going to be any time within the next 2 or 3 years, because I think LeBron James, while he is still in his prime, he's going to be, for the next probably 2, 3 seasons, winning MVPs. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. So number 1, obviously, like I said already, I already gave it away. Not that I was really giving it away, because I'm sure we already knew, is LeBron James. What is there really to say about LeBron that people just don't already know? I don't know. I'm not even going to go over his statistics because they're just that good, and everyone already knows about him already because of how good it is. The only thing that I look at that to me really jumps out of LeBron's numbers, other than the fact that he's has one of the best potentials for a triple double, he shot 56% field goal percentage last year. That is incredible. There's not even centers can shoot that good of a shooting field goal percentage. LeBron James just is so efficient. And, this whole knock about him not being able to shoot threes, he shot 40.6% from three-point land. Now, he also didn't shoot a lot of threes, but that means when he did shoot threes, he made them. So I think it's quite evident how LeBron has really grown as a player, and you can develop, and he has a consistent outside shot. We saw in the finals he made some big mid-range shots and came down the stretch. No one's going to go out there anymore and put LeBron James down. You cannot like him like I don't. I really don't like LeBron James because of his decision. I feel like what he did with the whole decision thing and forming a coalition with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh to go play for a team, and single-handedly, in my opinion, ruined basketball and what it really means to be a team or creating a team. I don't like LeBron James for that reason, but you can't overlook the fact that the guy is the best player in basketball and arguably the best player to ever play the game, and that's that. I will always go out there and say LeBron James is clearly the best small forward I think to ever play the game. You can argue a few other people, but in my opinion that's the case. And I really do believe that only really maybe Michael Jordan at this point that I can think of, off the top of my head, is the only player I still do believe is better than LeBron. And I do believe MJ is better than LeBron, and I think MJ will always be better than LeBron, regardless if LeBron James wins 2 or 3 more championships. I think a lot of people have overlooked how good Jordan was. There's a lot, we're at the generation now where young NBA fans don't really even remember Jordan. Jordan, or at least the Jordan of his prime. Jordan from the 90s Jordan. Some people remember Michael Jordan as when he was 40 years old playing for the Wizards and was still pretty good, still averaging 20 points per game as a 40-year-old. But I don't think a lot of people really remember how dominant Jordan was. There's never been a player who has scored over 30 points and had over 8 assists and 8 rebounds. Not to mention, he was one of the best defensive players ever to play the game. I know LeBron is a very good defender as well, but, honestly, I really feel like if you put Michael Jordan in his prime against LeBron James in his prime, I think Michael Jordan would defeat him every time. And I think the biggest thing that separates Jordan and LeBron is this one thing. When you watch Michael Jordan play, he just had that eye of the tiger, that I'm the best player to ever grace God's earth, and no one else can do anything to stop me. That was Jordan's mentality. And I'm not saying LeBron doesn't have that mentality, but if you watch it, and I think the best example of it was in the playoffs. You can see this a lot of times with LeBron James. He kind of coasts the first 3 quarters and doesn't crank it up until the 4th quarter. Almost like he's trying to build up his statistics until the 4th quarter. And then he goes in the 4th quarter and becomes dominant. Jordan would never even coast. He would, from the tip-off to the end of the game, just bring it to the defense. He would never allow himself to coast. Jordan has this competitiveness that no player has really ever shown in really any sport. And I think that's what's always going to separate Michael Jordan and LeBron James. LeBron James is very competitive and he wants to win. You know that, and he's that great of a player. But the way Jordan always just has that extra gear and is always set. And look, Michael Jordan is a guy who doesn't matter what the situation is. When he got drafted as a rookie, he believed he was the best player in the world, and he played like it. He had the confidence. He wanted the ball. He wanted all these things. He is the epitome of the ultimate player. And LeBron James, I really do believe this. Unless he, has a season where he scores 35 points and where averages a triple-double, I will never believe that LeBron James will ever be better than Jordan. That being said, he's still the best player in the NBA, and he's still my number one small forward. So, this video actually became more of me ranting about how great Jordan is and how LeBron James will never beat Jordan, more than about my top 5 small forwards. But like I said, you guys probably already knew most of these statistics and everything out there. So there you have it. My top 5 small forwards. Hopefully next week I'll have my top 5 power forwards. I don't know. Having a life is starting to get really annoying, but it's also kind of important. So hopefully we'll see what happens next week. So this is NetsBoy, signing off.